Hi elementary friends, it's Teacher Joan here. Did you guys all have a great Easter weekend celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ? And did any of you guys get to go to the Easter egg hunt that the Sunday school was able to have? Well, Teacher Joan and Uncle Steve had an Easter egg hunt for Nolan and Darren in our backyard. And get this, we hid 35 Easter eggs in the backyard. And Nolan and Darren were able to find 32 of them. So this means I have 3 more Easter eggs hiding in the backyard somewhere that we just couldn't find. So maybe one day when we're able to meet in person, maybe you can come visit me and help me find the eggs in my backyard. Well, now this Sunday we're going to switch gears because the last 2 weeks we had Teacher Alex and Teacher Michael teach us about Good Friday and how Jesus died on the cross for our sins. And we also learned last week that he rose up from the dead and he's alive. So from that lesson to this week's lesson, we're actually gonna go back 3 weeks to where Teacher Dave actually taught us about David fighting Goliath, and we're gonna pick up from there. Now let's start with some questions. Now I want you to think about, who is your friend? And what do you like about them? And last of all, what makes them a good friend? I want you guys to pause the video and talk to either mommy and daddy or one of your siblings and discuss these questions that I'm going to post up. What did you talk about with your family, about your friends? And when you were discussing about what makes your friend such a good friend, did you say things like, he's very kind, she's very gentle, she loves me, she encourages me? Let's take a look today of a very particular friendship between David and a man named Jonathan. Jonathan was the son of King Saul. And if you remember, did King Saul like David a lot? Every time David did something wonderful and great because the Lord was with him, Saul got very jealous and angry to the point where he wanted to kill David, and he tried to do it many times. Jonathan, his son, was very different from Saul. Remember Teacher Gabe's lesson about how David fought Goliath because he trusted in God? Jonathan was so impressed with David and he wanted them to be friends. But not because David won and killed Goliath, or because David was so popular with the Israelites and he had all these victories over all the battles he went to. There was something deeper that both Jonathan and David recognized in each other that enabled them to be good friends. Take a look at this drawing. Each of them placed God first in their lives. They shared the same love for God. And that is why they were also able to love each other in the same way God loved them. In fact, God was the one who provided this friendship to each other. So when David got into trouble with King Saul, he went to his friend Jonathan for help. And did Jonathan help David? He sure did. But it came at a great cost. Jonathan himself was a great man who was godly and was loved by Israel, and even a famous warrior. As the oldest son of King Saul, Jonathan would become the next king of Israel. However, by being David's friend, Jonathan gave up his right to be king to support God's plan for David's kingship. Jonathan's relationship with his father was also broken because he refused to follow Saul's sin against God by betraying David. He sacrificed becoming the next king, and he sacrificed his relationship with his father so that he could put God's kingdom first. And he did this because he loved God and knew that God's will must be done. And he remained faithful and loyal to his friend David. How much did Jonathan love David as his friend? In 1 Samuel chapter 18 verse 1, it says, "The soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul." What does it mean when Jonathan said that his soul was knitted to David's soul? Well, if you take a look at a sweater, you can't really tell what or where it begins and where it ends, what thread starts where and what thread ends where. How many threads were even used for this sweater? It's really hard to tell. So when your soul is knit together with someone else's soul, it means it's so intertwined that it is just one sweater. It is one friendship. So when he found out that Saul, his father, was making a plan to kill David, Jonathan decided to risk his father's anger upon him and go warn David. So he went to David and he made a covenant. So a covenant is an everlasting promise that can't be broken. And he promised David that he's going to be his friend no matter what and be loyal to him. And he asked David if David could also show him and his family grace and mercy later on when he becomes king. They had this plan where Jonathan was going to shoot an arrow, and then he's going to have his servant go after the arrow. Now they had a code word or code phrase actually. Jonathan told David, "If I tell my servant, 'Oh, the arrows are right here,' that means, 'David, it's safe, you can stay.' But if Jonathan said, 'Hey servant, oh, the arrows are so far away, it's too far,' that means, 'David, you need to run now. You need to flee from here. My father is coming after you.'" So they made this plan. When Jonathan found out the plan that Saul was going to hatch out against David, he had to go to the field. And he did as he promised. He shot an arrow and he called out to his servant that the arrows are far away. What does that mean? It means, "David, you need to flee from here. You need to run for your life." So after he sent away his servant, he had David come and he told David that he loved him, and they cried together and they wept because they knew that they couldn't stay in the same place. David would not be safe and they were going to part ways. So they cried, they prayed for one another, they blessed one another, and they went their separate ways. What makes Jonathan such a true friend for David? He's very loyal and he loves David just like he loves his own self. And he was sacrificial, he was faithful, and he was very encouraging to David. And those are qualities that we also want to cultivate to grow in us to be a friend to others as well, right? Now, can you think about all these qualities we talked about? Loyalty, faithfulness, love, kindness. This brings to mind a friend that we have that's actually better than any other friends that we will ever have. because all our friends, as wonderful and lovely as they are, they're human too, and they sin just like us. So they are not perfect always. But there's one friend who is perfect in every way. And we love him and we adore him because he is the best friend that he will ever have. And so who am I talking about? None other than Jesus Christ, whom we just celebrated, of the greatest love that he showed for us, which was dying on the cross for our sins when he was sinless himself. And then 3 days later, resurrecting and overcoming the power of death and of sin. So we have this great friend. So anytime you feel lonely or you feel like, I don't have any friends, I don't have a friend who understands me, let's remember that we do have a friend who is constantly watching over us and praying on our behalf. My elementary friends, I actually have some homework for you to do. And our homework this week, or whenever you can, if you could ask mommy or daddy to help you, maybe you could send a text or an email or even write a letter if you know the address of your friend, to just tell your friend that you love them, that you're so thankful for them, and that you are praying for them. If you could do that, I'm sure your friend, when they receive the message, that you can send it to their parents and they'll read it to them, or if you write them a letter, I'm sure your friend will be so surprised and so happy to hear from you and to hear that you love them so much. So let's try that out whenever you can. And I hope you have fun just remembering your friend, because right now we can't see them and we can't play with them like we used to, but to just show them that you care and you love them and you're thinking of them and you can't wait to see them again in person soon. So let's try that activity out. And now my lesson is done. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about this friendship of Jonathan and David, and I hope you have a very good week. I'll see you again next time.